Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Chaac Technologies. We are an advanced atmospheric water generation industry in the clean tech and renewable energy and power generation space. I have to just let everyone know the next slide is a video. It is a bit loud, so if you have sensitive hearing, please try to cover your ears. Turn it down just a little bit. Yeah, I got it. Okay. There, that may be a little bit better. All right.
I made that, by the way. I'm pretty proud of it.
Yeah, give it up for Sam. So with that, this is the problem. I believe it's already been attested to many, many times. We know that there is a clear lack of fresh water for the world today, whether that would be in a developing nation, disaster-stricken area. Over 184 million individuals through the World Health Organization have proclaimed this number. 78% of all energy usages include some type of carbon or methane emissions type of apparatus, therefore creating a carbon net positive ecosystem, which is exactly what we're trying to combat. So this is us, the founding team. I'd like to introduce myself. Welcome everyone. My name is Chaac. I spent the majority of my career in the U.S. Army. We are veteran founded. I've worked for several agencies, notably DARPA and a few in town here in the D.C. area. Former Uber Technologies as well, where I actually met Sam, a co-founder. And my background's primarily been within hydroelectric engineering as well as cybersecurity technology and integration. And Sam?
Sure. Hi, I'm Sam, and as Jake mentioned, I am the co-founder and partner, which is good because he can help me screw in light bulbs in the office. As you see here, 20-some years of military government, and there I was, bebopping along, working at Uber Technologies, a little startup company. When Jake approached me and said, "Hey, I've got this idea. I want you to come along with me and help me develop it." When I first saw it, I was like everybody else. I said, "This is crazy," but I used to jump out of airplanes in the Army, so I dig it. So here I am, working as the COO.
These are the technologies themselves. They are 3 patent pending non-provisionals with the USPTO. The top left is the aircraft integration device, which is the very bottom bullet point. The middle one is a reverse sprinkler apparatus system, atmospheric water generation, or AWG. When you see AWG, atmospheric water generation acronym. And the bottom left is the flagship product, the airborne atmospheric water generation system, which would be advanced dehumidification. That would be an aerostat in the sky. In short, we'll use the falling water and convert the mechanical energy and harnessing gravity at 9.8 meters per second to convert into renewable hydropower into electricity and a ground control station.
All right. So I suggested, by the way, that we should hand off by doing the Milli Vanilli chest bump, but I was overruled. So I will be talking about our go-to-market strategy. And this is one of those things where this is a type of technology where it's somewhat self-evident what the issue is. And what's great about this is that we essentially become a power provider, a power generator on par with like a wind farm or a solar farm, something along those lines. So we actually look at ourselves as creating a new type of renewable resource. So if you've got wind, you've got solar, now you're going to have, what do we say, aerothermal, I believe is what we were discussing as a term. So there's 3 approaches here. One is selling the electricity back into wholesale markets or through power purchase agreements with individual entities. The second is working with the water that we produce with municipalities, other businesses that may need water. So we've actually been discussing with a bottled water company. And we are also looking at the agricultural side, and we actually have already purchased 160 acres and a mountain, by the way, in Utah where we are going to be growing crops using this technology. And those crops, of course, will sell back into the market. Where we are as far as an approach, right now we are building the prototype as we speak. We've already, of course, gone through the business machinations of getting our business together, and we are actively putting the prototype together and getting ready to build it out into an MVP. Some key metrics, and of course, we're always happy to go into much more detail, but one airborne system will produce $2.6 million of profit, and that's actual profit after all the ops cost and CapEx. 1.5 million gallons of water produced a day and 5 megawatts continuous of energy. By year 5, and this is just with producing or just building one additional system on one additional site per year, we expect to have a 70% profit margin. Our ops cost and CapEx is that low compared to traditional solar, wind, et cetera, that we will be looking at some very high profit margins. Next slide.
And so this is the competition. Is in short, is anyone else doing this? And the answer, quite simply, is no. There are 72 identified atmospheric water generation industries and 0 that can do with what we do. No one has an IP whatsoever licensed or submitted within any industry or company worldwide that integrates energy, renewable power within their systems. And something to add to note is that our airborne systems are also self-power generative. That is including the power yield, meaning that they're ultra-high mobility for immediate and rapid deployment.
All right, this is our seed ask. We're looking for 1.4 million, and I know we're running up on time here, and I'd be really interested in your questions. And as you can see, this is how we're dividing it out, focused primarily on prototype and MVP builds.
And thank you so much for your time. This is the concept for the 3D image of what it would look like upon deployment. Clearly we have some work to do, but I really do appreciate everyone taking time out of your busy evenings to be with us this evening. Thank you.
So good job, guys, but I'd like you to clarify for me anyway. Are you a services company? Are you a product company? You're
Sure.
Grow and sell crops, but you've got this water thing. Tell me a little bit
Just everything.
specifically.
Yeah. So we're an individual power provider, an IPP. And so energy can be sold using PERPA contracts or auctioning into the nearest market and sell energy back into the grid to service a variety of consumers, primarily B2B. However, we have 2 other sales verticals, which one would be water. Water has several micro verticals in themselves as well between water irrigation cooperatives. So in Utah, for example, where we're headquartered at, which is where I live in Salt Lake, there are several irrigation cooperatives right now that are in desperate need of water. But we're also negotiating a pre-MOU sales agreement with a bottled water industry right now. And then the agricultural side, which would be either big box retailers or wholesale redistribution, which we do plan to, in micro and incremental steps, terraform the desert that we can grow crops. And we've already identified our 5 cash crops, which I can go into those details later, but they have similar humidity conditions as well as harvest maturation life cycles.
So I'm wondering if you can shed a little bit of light on sort of what happens to the atmosphere after you drain the clouds.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We were waiting for that one. Are we doing more harm than good? And this actually had to take a bit of my portfolio into the botanist world a bit here, is how do plants actually intake water, generally speaking? And I'm not one to give subjective numbers too much here, but unfortunately I'm going to have to give one. I'm an objective engineer myself. But approximately and relatively, 70% of plants and vegetation perspire water known as a process of transpiration, meaning that they actually sweat water on the underside of their leaves or the xylophym stem intake, meaning that what innervates morning dew. We can recontribute to the ecosystem of harnessing water and repurposing it into areas that are affected or do not have any whatsoever. We're working within, negotiating with an NGO right now in West Africa that we could deploy our systems for those that have 0 water. I hope that helps. So we're not necessarily destroying the atmosphere, we're repurposing water to those that are in need of it, in short.
Let me just follow up on that. So you mentioned you're negotiating with an NGO. Who are your target customers?
And so this is where it becomes quite ubiquitous, to be quite simply. Actually, Sam, I know you've done a lot of work in that one. Sam, you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. So who are our customers? That's a great question. And like Jake said, it is quite, because we have several sales verticals, there are several different types. So on the electricity side, what we're looking at is either selling into wholesale markets, which it depends on the region where you are, how you can sell into those markets, so you become just like a solar farm, or selling into individual companies or businesses, et cetera, that need power for, say, to run a brewery, say to run a smelting plant, something like that. That's the electricity side. Water side, we'd be looking at municipalities, especially out west in the United States. There's a huge need for water to be flowing into these towns, into municipalities, as well as be looking at businesses that require water as well. So we looked at, in fact, some of these businesses can be co-located. So a smelting plant needs water and electricity to power itself. The crops themselves, we are looking at, we're actually already talking with grocery store chains, things like that, to get those crops, which will be organic, clean energy, and clean water grown crops.
The patents that you're filing are in which of those areas?
Say again?
The patents that you're filing or have, what of those three areas do those patents apply?
All of them.
All three of them. So I designed them for the company themselves. We have our holdings entity licensing all the IP, obviously to our operating entity, which is a C Corp. But the encapsulation of what is detailed is all, not just the markets, but the entire procedures of how to service those markets. From the energy utility practice, which is primarily about 60%, 80% of what we primarily are focused on, with the ancillary water and agricultural practices, to which all are mentioned in the non-provisionals. And we also have the registered trademark for Chaac. Rebranding the logo right now.
I get a really important question. Where'd you come up with that name?
not the dessert question, yeah. So I worked a lot in Central America through the government, and spent a lot of time with Mayan descendants. And Chaac is the Mayan rain deity. And as legend has it, it's the only rain deity in mythology across the globe where the rain god lived underground. And when he came out to produce water, he would hit the clouds with an axe, and Chaac was the actual name that was pronounced, and it stuck. And it seems rather fortuitous for us to name the company that way.
I got a follow-up.
If it's more about names, we want it.
Have you pursued non-dilutive funding for this?
We have been 100% bootstrapped.
Okay. You haven't pursued it all or explored it in any way? Or
Not at all,
curious? Okay.
not yet.
Let's take a couple from the audience.
Hey, thank you. One quick question is, how variable is the production of water and energy from day to day and the time of day based on local climate or daily weather and stuff like that? And also the second question, if you don't mind, what does the FAA think about the airstrip in the air?
They love it. No, I was kidding.
Yeah, I'll take the reg side. You take the.
Yeah, so and I'll start backwards to forwards to answer your question. To give a quick synopsis, surprisingly, the FAA barriers to entry are very minimal. We need to be 4 nautical miles away from a Series B or Class B airport, which our first project location is substantially away from that in the middle of the desert. Is also 150 nautical miles away from any military installation to which we meet that criteria as well. As long as we have a registered N number through the FAA, which our manufacturers are building it to the FAA specs right now to accelerate our permit that will be issued to us, and we request our air clearance 2 weeks in advance, we're relatively in the clear, as long as we're static, which is the goal. We're not going to be roving around in a blimp throughout the entire world. There will be static locations. But surprisingly, very easy. And do you want to take the geoclimate or me do it?
Well, yeah, I was actually going to take the reg side, but hey, I'll tell. Do you want to take the tech side? Because that's
sure. Yeah, no worries. So in terms of the variability of humidity, you need humidity obviously to condense water. The good news is most deserts on Earth are over a 30% relative humidity, or 5 atmospheric grams per meter, which our systems, I specifically designed them to operate at a minimum 40% relative humidity location, meaning that we can deploy this into the deserts in the Middle East, which are invariably 35 to 45% relative humidity, and where we're at in Utah, which is a 43% relative humidity. High humid areas are obviously more mature for our growth.
I hate to say it, this is the last question we have time for.
Nice job, guys. Thank you.